Hi, April.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How's your summer going?
Oh, I can't get enough of summer.
Yeah,
I'm an outdoor person.
yeah.
You as well?
I hear you. Yeah, it's been good. I've got one more trip. I've had it's been the summer of little short trips for us, but got one more. And that's about it for the summer. But
It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, my daughter and her husband just moved to Cape Cod, so I feel like I just scored the lottery.
Yeah. Mhm. What town are they in?
They
Yeah.
just bought a house in Harwich.
Harwich, okay.
Yeah, and he works at manages the restaurant at the Chatham Inn, not the Chatham Bars Inn, but the Chatham Inn. So visiting there, you also get amazing food. So
Yeah, that
that's
sounds
pretty
like
impressive.
you hit the jackpot.
I did. Yeah.
Hey, Jay, I sent you an updated version of the FinCom schedule.
Okay.
I didn't realize, I guess I never sent it to you after we made some other changes. So there's a few other
Okay.
lines after the one that you had sent.
Okay, got it.
If you want to put that on the screen, yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it up. Or I guess when we get to that subject.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Susie.
Hey guys.
And George.
Hello?
And Becky.
Hello. Did the meeting start already?
Not yet. I think we're waiting on Jim Walton.
And Jim Hemingway, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Jim Walton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both Jims.
I can call Hemingway and see if he forgot. He might have spaced it out.
There might be a gym convention.
Or the gyms are thinking 6 o'clock, 6:30.
Yeah. It's right there at the gym. Haha.
I guess we could always start and do the minutes. Let's see, from July 13th. You guys want to do that? Let's pull those up.
Yeah, so I move that we accept the minutes from July 13th.
Okay.
Where are they? There they are.
And so this first section, review and discuss alternative budget formats, that's actually something we're going to talk more about today.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think Becky, we had talked, you were gonna follow up and see if there was even the possibility of kind of having this system that I think we sort of settled on as at least one possible alternative format, which was kind of a streamlined budget, high-level budget that we share at annual town meeting, and then the more detailed budget that we're used to. So yeah, so I think we just need to follow up on that discussion.
And I'm gonna jump on the phone and see if I can find out some more answers, because
Okay,
Gail and I were missing each other, but I'm gonna see if I
Okay.
can catch her now.
okay, got it. Are there any other comments or questions about the minutes?
Not for me.
All right, I didn't have any.
Oh, they look fine.
Okay, so somebody want to second April's
I'll second it.
motion to approve? Okay. All right, and let's do a vote. We'll start with George.
Arvanitis, aye.
Groves, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Sinai.
Okay.
Right. All right, so Bob, would you happen to have Jim Hemingway's?
I called him and left a
Did
message
you
on his
call him?
machine. He did
Okay,
not
yeah.
answer.
And I
Hmm.
called Jim Walton and left the
Okay.
machine.
I think he's
Okay.
probably out, we
Yeah.
just keep just something if we're
Jim
getting about
and-
5:30 start,
Yeah, okay, got it. I just.
but maybe
yeah,
he'll come
no.
in and get the message.
Okay, All right,
I'll try him again in 10 minutes.
that sounds good. Okay. So why don't we do a little shuffling of the agenda, since it looks like Becky's making some calls to see if we can have some follow-up information about that alternative budgets topic. Let's pull up, I'm gonna actually share, let's see, did she step away? Yeah. All right. I was going to share my screen because George sent me an updated version of the FinCom transfer list, because I was missing on mine, I think the last two that we did, which happened kind of after town meeting. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm just going to email that updated version. You can disregard the one I sent earlier tonight. Since I can't share my screen, maybe you guys can all pull it up on yours and sort of follow along as we talk. Okay, I just sent it.
AJ, if you want, I can share my screen and just bring.
Oh,
it up.
yeah. Do you have
Yeah, I've got it open.
screen sharing? Oh, great. But do you have
Oh, no, it's disabled.
screen
You're
share?
right.
Yeah.
No.
So
Oh, there
that's
it is.
Becky's stepped away.
Yeah, Becky's not here. Right. That's why you were saying you don't have access. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Oh, wait, did I send you the right one?
I hope so. They look a
Yeah.
lot.
Ending
Okay.
ending balance is on row 20, 26,863.
Yeah, and it should have the beaver, deceiver, and mosquito control district.
Right. Those are the last two items.
Expenses as the last two, correct? Yeah.
Speaking of the
Okay.
beaver deceiver,
It's gone.
well, I that raises another issue, but probably I can maybe wait till the end. Did anybody read the Gazette today?
No,
No.
Front page article about dams and problem dams,
Oh,
and
yeah.
apparently the dam on Dudleyville Road in Shutesbury is considered unsatisfactory.
on Dudleyville.
The
Yeah,
dam, you mean at Brown's Pond?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
Brown
Yeah,
Pond.
that's been a problem for years.
Yeah, right. I'm just curious. I mean, is that something we need to be concerned about in the future? But now's not the right time. I'm sorry.
No.
I don't mean to
It's
hide.
a private dam. It is
Yeah.
not owned by the town.
Is it
Right.
in the town, Becky, that dam, or is it off over the line?
It's in Shutesbury, but it's a private dam.
Very close to the line, but yeah, you're right. downstream
Brown's,
of that,
Lois
all over.
owns the dam. Lois,
Yeah.
brother
But
David.
if a dam like that is unsatisfactory, it poses a risk to the community and the houses below it. The state can force the owners to mitigate it, right?
Well,
And
think
where,
so.
yeah, but you can do all you want, but if they don't have the money, what are they gonna do?
well,
Right.
just one thing to point out, and I've been around for a long time, that dam used to contain a pond, a big pond.
Yep.
David Brown went to put in a water generation system, and he
Pulled the
drained the
plug.
pond down to its
Yes.
present level, and it's never, ever been back. So he's kind of solved the problem.
Except,
There was
It
no
was back
ineptitude.
this spring, Bob.
Is it?
It
And
was this spring. It almost overtopped. There was a beaver.
It's
that-
up to the top of the dam?
on the other side of Dudleyville Road, that.
Yeah, I know
there's a-
where it is, but
No,
I don't
but-
read it.
But that's where the beavers have built another dam and
yeah.
have flooded the opposite side. We're
But
at the
there-
culvert.
But there's also, the beavers had built a dam within the dam. that
Within Brown's
was
dam.
higher than the
Oh.
dam was.
Oh, really? The beavers have to take
The
care of this.
water was going around the outside.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I hope those beavers have
outside of the
insurance, that's all
floodplain.
I can say.
It's subsided at this point, but it is an issue. I've been talking to folks about potential grant funding, because the other piece of it is there's a big town culvert on the other side. So
Right.
the town's responsibility is to figure out what that culvert can sustain and whether that culvert would need to be rebuilt when they remove the dam. Whenever they can get $500,000, $1 million to do it.
I know this is, I just believe that there is a spillway in the dam, is there not, that they used to drain the pond?
Yeah, it's got all the parts and
Yeah,
they're all
right.
functioning.
But the paper did call it unsatisfactory. The state, I don't know what agency says it's unsatisfactory. So
Well,
Office
then-
of Dam Safety, it's labeled, yeah, we've got
Yeah.
letters, we get
It's
the
been-
letters.
It's been a while.
Hmm.
That has,
It's
And-
a headache that we will, maybe, hopefully we can take that on after we solve our current culvert.
well, at least that's funded, right? The current culvert, we've got enough money to finish that.
So far.
Yeah,
anyway,
So, all right, so let me just mention, I think Susie, this was, you had the suggestion at our last meeting that we spend a few minutes reviewing this list. I assume the point being that some of these expenses might sort of push us to reflect on our kind of regular operating budget and whether it's sufficient for certain kinds of expenses that maybe kind of come up and require these transfers. Was that your kind of thinking, Susie?
Yeah, and not only operating expenses, but like
Mm.
when the generator had a problem at the fire station, I realized generators are not on our capital plan list. And there might be a reasonable expectation of, because we have three, right? School, town hall, and fire station. And so it may be that there's going to be a reasonable anticipation for needing some funding for other ones. And, you know, there's kind of the argument that you wait till it breaks, but I feel like the municipal responsibility is that it's not my inconvenience or your inconvenience, that it can affect the operation of the town. So, that was 19,000, and that was actually the largest of the expenses. And then there are other ones that we've sort of addressed more as operating, but we may need to look and make sure our lines are in keeping with what's coming part of our reality.
Yeah, I mean, the legal line, I feel like is not one that we've really sort of settled on. How, like, is this the new norm, or are we truly experiencing a unique mix of problems and circumstances that have led us to this, this kind of rapid increase in our legal expenses over the last year? So Bob, I see your hand up. I also would like to hear Becky just reflect on how she thinks of this. Is this, again, like, is this a temporary problem, or are we looking at perhaps kind of a new kind of a new reality that towns might face? So let me go to Bob first.
Let me just say, my opinion is that, yes, this is a very recent development. And until further experience shows otherwise, I think it's an anomaly that we're in the circumstance that we're in now. We have to make adjustments to pay for legal services that we are required to undertake and to hire out. But I don't see why, with all the years' experience we've had and all the time I've been on the committee, we've had a fairly steady line that, you know, we had to make slight adjustments on. But this has been extraordinary, and I think it'll have to be proven to me to think that we're going to adjust. You know, we can adjust this year because we know this year there's specific need, and we're going to do that. But I think that in terms of our budget, I think we should just hold judgment on that until we see something that's really changed permanently. You know, like hiring a new attorney for the town or something that we could get a grip on. But I don't know if anybody else has any opinion about that, but it seems to me an anomaly that we're dealing with these legal expenses right now.
that would be nice. Yeah.
Sorry, April.
No, no. That's what I was just agreeing. I was just saying
Okay, got it.
that would be my sense as well.
All right, Susie.
I lost it.
Oh. All right.
Oh, it's,
Well, let me know if it comes back.
Okay.
All right. I had just one. Okay, sorry. Let's go to Becky, and then I have a follow-up.
Okay, AJ, to answer your question, in the last 14 years, there was one other year, that and a half, maybe 2 years around 2011, 2012, where we had the civil rights lawsuit against the planning board, and we ended up spending $25,000 on that suit. And then when we had the library suit that cost the town, I think it was less than that, closer to about $10,000.
Got
So it seems to come in spurts. The last, I mean, so, but you can pin it to the solar issue, was addressed, but it was a very different lawsuit. It came from a group of Native Americans, but in combination with folks in town who did not support the lands, the solar, working together. But those were the, other than that, we've worked really hard to minimize our legal situations. And we continue to do that, but again, we have another big solar lawsuit, this time from Kohl's. We were able to avoid a major lawsuit with Kohl's on the zoning, which was a miracle because we were on the precipice of a lawsuit for 2 or 3 years, but we never had one with Kohl's that round. So I think it is unprecedented, but it's almost structural in nature, because it's our zoning again, that's it's being responded to in a very negative way.
Okay. I have a follow-up, but I want to go to Susie because maybe
I
you
did-
remember.
I
what it
did
was.
remember.
Okay.
So what I remembered is that in the last year, the select board has had to draft 2 policies to cover the kind of the new reality that you're talking about. They had to draft a policy that says how town boards can go about spending legal money, and also about workplace sites, how they would be addressed. And so what's new to this reality is they're having to play catch up with ways that people in the town are thinking that's different than before. I mean, we've had other work sites, but we haven't had to say, these are the safety issues that we need to address in our policy. We've had legal spending all along, but we haven't had this issue about who gets to say what legal money is spent and how we go about it. And so I feel wary that the select board is going to have to keep trying to get ahead of these things when they're already a little behind. And who knows what other thresholds people are going to push and push at the select board. So I think we have had an understanding and sort of an operating mode in the past, and it has been workable, but it's not clear to me that the culture we're living in, people aren't going to try to go about things in another way, and it ends up being an expense or a trouble for the town.
George?
You're muted, George.
You're muted, George, but I don't. Yeah, your mute setting is not.
It's on.
but
My
we can't
computer
hear you.
said it. He's muted
Now
by
it is,
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
there you
Hear me
go.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. So yeah, I agree with what Susie said. It seems like when there's opposition to anything, the lawyers start getting involved. It seems to be a cultural thing. I think we did the right thing on the legal line because we know that we have this temporary situation in anticipation of the library that is creating a lot of extra work. And so we funded an additional $15,000. And I think in the future, the lesson is we do need to look at the things that are coming up and some of the issues, and some of the issues may have legal expenses associated with them. And we adjust accordingly and maybe use free cash because we know for a year or two. So I think what we did was pretty good with legal is kind of the thing I learned, is my perspective there. But I was also looking at this list and there's like 4 items where the issue is really related to CapEx. It's really related to, how we manage our assets, this
Yeah,
electric generator in particular, but then the tractor repairs, the cruiser maintenance.
cruiser, yeah.
Yeah, those are things that we would really want the managers of the departments. I know you can't always predict these things, but really just ask them, please keep, a finger on the pulse of what's going on with all your equipment.
Yeah.
That's what the big dollars are, right? The generator, the tractor repairs, and the maintenance. The fuel, we knew about inflation.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I do think, I'm sorry.
no, that's it.
I think, George, one thing we should do in advance of the fall kind of budget season, when we're meeting with departments, I think we should look at maybe the last like 3 years of spending on the maintenance related lines and like the repair lines for the departments that have like that have significant assets like highway, fire, and police.
You're right, but the managers, I still think that need to watch it because your maintenance can depend on how
Yeah.
current your purchases are.
Yeah,
The police department found themselves with a very old vehicle, and
yeah. But I guess one of the things is like if we do that, just a little bit of like recent history research on those lines in advance of meeting with the departments, like it might prompt us to ask a specific set of questions like, hey, for 3 years in a row now, like you've overspent let's say, I don't know if this is okay, imagine just for a minute, like the cruiser maintenance line, or you've had to sort of move funds or request fund. And so like, were there truly a unique set of issues that our vehicles were facing in the last 3 years? Or does this suggest that maybe we need to do some adjusting of the line? So I think that research might just help to sort of create just some sort of prompting questions that we might
Do
want
you
to
think-
ask those
do you think
departments.
the liaisons should take a look at the
Yeah,
maintenance lines
I think
before
that-
they?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, I just want to add, I agree with what you, George, said, but I think that these circumstances that are on this list are very different. Like, there's no way the fire department, for example, with their generator, they have a regular service that tests the generator, I think once a month. And they had diagnostics, they had a service plan. This thing just died. And there was no way that the department was going to anticipate that. So we had to make, I voted against it because I thought it should have gone through the capital process. But regardless, we funded it as committee and the town paid for it. And there's no way that the fire department could have anticipated that breakdown. So I think with the highway department, they had a similar problem with their equipment. That was, they had this new piece of equipment that they couldn't get repaired by Devin Lane, who was the dealer that sold them the equipment. They had to go around and spend some extra money to get this thing operational, do their job. And he explained it to us, Tim explained it to us. I think it was a pretty extraordinary circumstance. And I'm pretty confident that they do a good job of maintaining their equipment. On the other hand, with the police department, we had Fernandez and we had these cars, and I asked questions, I think pointed questions to Chief Fernandez and to Chief Burgess. Is this car being maintained? Are these cars being maintained on a regular basis? And I have my doubts that they were, because, for example, with the most recent automobile that we just transferred money to fix, a lot of the stuff was stuff that all came in together: brakes, shocks, tires, all these things all together. So where was the regular maintenance? Those are the kind of questions we should be asking department heads when they just to make sure that they're spending the lines. And these people, some of them come in inexperienced, they're not used to running a fleet of automobiles or whatever. But I think in the case of, say, the fire department, highway department, and police department, it's very different. These three transfers were very different. And I don't think we could reasonably expect that we'd have to buy a new generator last year. And so we did. And so then we had to come up with the money. So I think we can't, I don't think we should be, I don't know how many years a generator lasts. I think that that generator was working. It was the controls that failed. The motor and the generator itself both worked, but the thing did not operate properly because Lenny wasn't able to get the right part that was part of the control for the thing, which is one of those awful things that we live with now because the manufacturers don't support their products as like they used to. But that was something that I couldn't expect of him. He tried to deal with it and tried to get a part from, I think, from Amazon or eBay or something. But it didn't work out. So that's very different from regular maintenance being ignored or something.
Yeah. April.
Well, yeah, I was just wanted to comment on how maybe some of the departments also are really trying to keep vehicles going longer because they don't want to have to come to the town and ask for new vehicles. But I also agree that the liaisons can absolutely help with looking at the maintenance and anticipatory maintenance on vehicles.
Susie?
And I think that for the last many years, there's been a letter that goes out in September that says, keep it to level services and quite a downward pressure. And I feel every department we've talked to reflects this downward pressure. And most of the people live in town and our taxpayers too. So I feel that I'm not saying we shouldn't put some pressure on, but I'm saying that as a result of this, I believe we get budgets that are under funded and problems are run into. And how to resolve that, I don't know, but I don't feel it comes out of nowhere. I feel like we're part of that.
Yeah, I think, Susie, Kristen, I think made a point early in her tenure as chief that I think that maybe that what you just described was an issue with the police department, that there was a lot of kind of deferred maintenance on vehicles that she inherited, and that she seemed, at least I think in some of our conversations with her, she seemed committed to the idea of like wanting to get these kind of vehicles caught up in terms of like service schedules and whatnot. So hopefully, at least with respect to that department, that what you're describing is not happening. But yeah, I think I think we've got some good ideas to kind of utilize our liaison relationships to pay like just particular attention to these kind of lines that have to deal with maintenance and repairs. Okay. Anything else on reserve transfers and implications? Susie, is your hand up?
Yep.
Because you got anything? Yeah, go ahead.
So we know that FY24's budget has a bump up in legal, right? That's the 15,000 that George referred to. And I can't remember, and I can't find my copy of the past budget. Did we bump up fuel by any motion, any amount?
A small amount, I believe.
And that fuel, is that also the heating or is that the vehicle fuel?
I think we bumped up both.
Okay, that'd be good.
But here's just a second before this makes a liar out of me. Highway. No.
We increased fuel from 34,000 to 40,000. That's the fuel line under town vehicle energy. And then the other fuel line is,
Heat.
okay. Oh, heat. Okay. Yep. See if I can find that.
It's up with electrical.
Oh, I found it. Okay. Yeah. The heat we raised from 9,000 to 12,675. That's also a 41% increase. So we did increase both of those substantially.
Yeah,
The heating in particular,
right.
40% versus for the vehicles, 17%.
So I think we've put ourselves in a better position for operating. I don't want to jinx anything, so I'm not going to say anything more about that.
One thing,
Yeah.
one thing I would like to add, I'm checking it right now, but I think on the legal, we increased it by 15 grand with free cash, but I think the total legal line, we actually,
Went up 10, so we went to 25 and
That's
then.
right.
But then we
That's
transferred
right.
some money.
Yeah, we more than doubled it. We went from 15 to 40.
But
Right.
that was in FY 23, so FY
No, no.
24,
FY 24, we went
Right.
from 15 to 40.
okay,
yeah, and the point is 15 grand of it was funded by free cash because we have this bump going on. But the other 10 of that 25, that's permanently in the legal line now. So we really gave it quite a boost for beyond FY 24.
Yeah.
mhm.
True.
And
But
no,
it's
and we don't have
67%.
software, the assessor situation, that software's set, right? And we did the tax collector and the accountant and the treasurer, right? They're all taken care of.
Yeah, the 3 outside assessors all are now on Vadar, and that all those transitions have been completed.
And the school, local school made a transition in their software for something that they do. So, actually software seems like one of the bigger rollers to me, but I don't know that any are coming right now.
Bob?
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment about that particular issue, that the Vadar purchase, which was made out of a transfer from our reserve, could have come out of special town meeting or town meeting. It could probably be funded in that way, but that this year we decided to vote in favor of that. But I don't think that's going to be a normal circumstance at all. That shouldn't happen if things are properly anticipated. And so that's an anomalous entry, I think, in this particular spreadsheet. So I think that should be pointed out.
Can I respond to that, AJ?
Yeah, please go ahead,
Well,
Becky.
AJ, I just wanted to, Bob, the timing was the issue. Ellen's ability, she had to do like blocks of activities for that 4-month period, 3 months intensively to prepare for the July 1st transition. So in the other case of the other Vadar people, they were able to wait and do it in the new year, but she was trying to catch up to them, and her software was being eliminated, putting her in a pickle. So she could not wait till the beginning of the new year to do her transition. So the timing made it critical. I mean,
Yeah,
and
be
it
that
took
as
her
it
a
may,
while to decide.
yeah, be that as it may, it's an anomalous situation, and I don't anticipate we're going to run into that on a normal basis.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Yeah. April and then Susie.
I'm not clear about why we had so much over in the health insurance. Is that something we can anticipate? Was that an anomaly?
So that's
No,
a
what
negative
happened?
number.
That's the what?
That's a negative, I'm sorry. That's a negative
Yeah.
number. We transferred 30,000 from healthcare
Right.
to FinCom reserve because we were so far ahead, health insurance because. we were so
Right.
I think
far ahead.
that's April's question.
That's my question.
Yeah.
were
Why
we-
did we have that 30,000?
All right.
And I think that's a crapshoot every year, April.
Mhm.
I have put a heavy thumb on traditionally on any request from the treasurer,
Mhm.
throughout Gabe's tenure as well.
Mhm.
Somehow we were, if you just looked at the total numbers that potentially could have been in there, it's almost, it's 50% more
Mhm.
than what our actual costs were. So that it's really difficult to anticipate the exact number. And some years we've been really tight where we had no money left at all.
Yeah.
And you can't control it. It's all depends who walks in the door, the teachers that transition, everything.
this, April, you should also understand, we transferred money out of that line into our reserve account, and they also are transferring here in the document that Becky had assigned. So
Right,
there was a lot of money there that was transferred out of that.
that's right. And my question was, why was there so much money that could be transferred? But that makes sense. It is a crapshoot in a way.
Yeah, and
Right.
this year was, we got lucky this year. It's sort of like the snow accounts and the health insurance. You can't control them as some other things.
Susie?
And the other thing about health insurance is the rates. There was a time when they were skyrocketing and through the different programs or policies we're into, they're staying more stable. And the other thing is this conversation is about looking at anomalous situations and wondering if there's a pattern or wondering if those different pieces might indicate to us something in the future. So I think even though you can sort of look at each one and say that won't happen again, that won't happen again, we might be into a pattern, and that's what I feel I'm trying to figure out.
Mhm.
George?
Something will happen.
Yeah, no, Susie makes a really good point, and it makes me think maybe one of the things we should do is look at the FinCom reserve transfers from the previous 2 years and compare and see if there's any trends or any one or two particular items that seem to happen over and over again. I don't think so. When I look at it and I think back to previous years, everything on this, I think, is pretty unique to prior years.
That's what I see too.
I think that's probably
But it's just, just another way to kind of flush out anything that might be an ongoing issue.
It was a very odd, expensive year.
$78,000 we spent.
Yeah.
I think the only other follow-up, other than having liaisons discuss maintenance lines with their departments, is, I think, Becky, certainly no rush on this, but if you get a chance, if you could just gather some information about the age and condition of the 2 other generators that the town has. You said it was town hall and the school, is that right?
And then
Um,
the MLP has a generator as well. And what
Okay.
this
All
year
right.
brought up was highway department has been going without a generator. And during the ice storm back in 2008, they were the last ones right after my street to get their power back on.
Huh.
Which is crazy. So we have those guys trying to operate off a portable generator when the rest of the town, and they're working 24 hours straight sometimes. I think there's, as we look at, it might be an issue that really needs to get addressed in the next couple of years, next few years.
Yeah, I mean, so I think if we do end up putting generators on our capital spending calendar, then I think that information would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we should also put we don't control the MLP, but they also have a generator, so you guys know.
Right.
They bought the same, it's the same kind as we now have at the fire station.
April?
I was just wondering if I could have copies of the last maybe 2 or 3 years budgets. I don't have those, and I think that would be helpful. to
But
send
the
those out.
budgets have
On the
the
budget.
Annual
actuals.
report.
Yeah, the budget contained the actuals for the last 4 years.
It's
That-
got the budgets
okay.
and the actuals, right, Becky?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the most recent budget, you're going to see it all. Yes.
Oh,
It's
you
got
didn't pick
actual
up an
for
extra copy at town meeting, April.
No, I missed town meeting this year.
Oh,
burn,
April,
that's
come
bad.
on.
That was a good choice, because now in the future you'll be there.
Good.
It was-
But I
I have the
have a box with some more budgets in them and
I'll look-
the finance committee annual report from this year.
Perfect.
And that,
Perfect.
if you
Now-
stop, you can grab those
And I will never miss another town meeting.
until the next one.
Right.
All right, you picked I'm not gonna say a boring one, but it was not as eventful as.
No, it's more
maybe recent
about
ones. Yeah.
being physically cold. I think.
Right. Okay, I think I'm gonna move us on to the next item unless anybody has anything else to add. Okay. Becky, were you able to get any information that you could
Yeah,
share with us?
I
Yeah, okay.
spoke to Gail,
Mhm.
and as Paul had reported, a number of larger towns do that.
Mhm.
They use for example, highway wages expense line, and
Mhm.
that's what gets voted. She's used those kind of budgets in Hadley and Orange. They both do it that way. She can still produce the fully detailed expense report as we want it. Just so the bottom line numbers all per department all have to match.
Mhm.
And that's what she will focus on. If she sees fuel is overspent and some other highway well, fuel isn't in there, but say repairs is overspent, but they have plenty of money left in the striping or something else, she won't worry about it as quickly. That doesn't mean the finance committee can still worry about any negative line. But
Right.
she just knows that she will be able to, money can be transferred between lines
Okay,
without it being a vote of the finance committee and select board at the end of the year.
okay. So here's what I think we need to do. Okay, so that's super helpful. So it sounds like it's possible, right? I mean, I'm not gonna assume that we're we want to direct her to do that. But what I think we should do, and given that we're missing 2 members, I don't think we should do it tonight. But I think we should have one last discussion about this, or at least one more discussion about this at our next meeting, where I think maybe what I'll do is I will, Becky, unless you have any objection, I'll maybe reach out to Gail and ask her to share. Maybe it's the Orange, because she still serves as their account. No.
No, she said
Oh, that's right.
unfortunately, she is fully retired except
from-
Shutesbury
Oh,
and
that's right.
Pelham.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
she's
Got it.
doing Pelham, but they don't do it, so.
Okay. All right. So scratch that.
Or I think you have to go online to
Oh,
find it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you probably can get it.
Yeah, we'll get it. But I think what we'll do is I'll try to find at least 2 examples of, and I think they may be also, at least one of them, I think it was Conway, Susie, that was
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
list. So maybe it's Conway and Orange. I'll do a little digging. But that specifically do what Becky, you described right now, which is have a high level budget that's presented and voted on at town meeting, which has for all of your major departments, a wages line and then an expense line. And again, with an understanding that we would continue to have our expense reports and our detailed budget that we as a committee would use to kind of monitor expenses. And I think then we should, as a committee, look at these 2 examples and have at least one more discussion about what would be the pros and cons of adopting something like that. Bob, I think you were about to raise your hand.
I'd like just to get a little clarification here
Yeah,
for myself. The way I understand our discussion last time was that we talked about presenting the budget as a unified number at town meeting. But we still would have, for tracking and for legal purposes, we would have the budgets broken into accounts such as, for example, vehicle maintenance and others. And that when those accounts had expenses that were processed and posted, then those numbers would be entered into the accounting by Gail or somebody else as being charged to that account, that line, vehicle maintenance, for example. So those lines would, those demarcations would remain. And then they would be, now Becky says that maybe there's some flexibility in the department. This is where I'm a little confused. I want some clarification. Are we saying we're discussing the idea of creating a kind of fungibility for the department head to say they could spend their money any way they want? Or what? That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yes, we
So,
are.
yeah. Yeah, so I think two things, and then I'll see if others have comments. So I think one, I'm taking away from our previous discussion that I think there was unanimous consensus among the committee members that we still need as a finance committee to have access to a detailed budget along the lines of what we currently utilize for monitoring expenses against budgeted amounts for individual lines, right? So that, I think that's any discussion of an alternative budget format is going to need to continue to have that detailed budget be a part of the process, right? So I think we're all on the same page there. I think the idea is that in terms of what gets presented and voted on at town meeting, that detailed budget would have a high level budget that essentially has two lines per department, wages line and an expense line. And that high level budget was what would be approved at town meeting, and that would afford department heads some flexibility. Obviously, they still have to stay within their expense line. So for example, if the high level budget is going to have a specific number budgeted for highway expenses, that number cannot, the department can't exceed that number without taking some set of steps. But department would have some flexibility in moving money or overspending money on one expense line and underspending on another, as long as it sort of balances out. And that would be the value add of making this change, if the committee agrees that this is a positive thing, is that department heads would have the flexibility to sort of make those kinds of adjustments without the need to ask for transfers. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Susie, and then anybody else who wants to chime in?
So the process you just outlined does start with the department filling out a proposed budget that does have the categories, the very specific categories that we've always used. And so I think having that helps carry the historical part forward. It's not that it always has to be the same, because after looking at it, they may say, I really don't need this much over here, I really need this much over there. But we have start with the detailed from the department's proposed budget. And then at the end, there's some flexibility within those lines, but that flexibility has the limits of the bottom line of that department. That is the budget that we passed. So I think knowing that we're having a discussion with the departments about the specific lines. And I also think it's really important to recognize that I believe these departments do care about what happens in their budget, and they are trying to do this. And we're not catching them at something, or we're not sort of intimidating them. We're, especially when a liaison position, you really are listening to developing the whole picture, and then you hold the whole picture, and you both hold the whole picture. So that's what I'm hoping will come out of this process.
Well, I wanted to be clear about what we were talking about, and I think I'm more clear about this, because that aspect of it, what's so-called flexibility between lines, is where I object to. And so we'll have the debate when we have a full committee, but that's very different from the idea that this is just going to be presented at town meeting in a certain way that would be more condensed, but it would still operate the same way it always has, which is another interpretation that I thought was possible that I could have put over our conversation. But that's a very different thing, because, for example, if a department had a line that had a decrease in cost, for example, let's say one of the town departments gets an electric vehicle, and then so the maintenance cost for electric vehicles is supposedly zero. So that maintenance line might be reasonably expected to go down. And if we were tracking that on a year-to-year basis, we could make an adjustment and we could be aware, and being aware is our job, not just being supportive of town departments, but being aware of how money is spent and being
Mhm.
critical. And I don't mean that in a nasty way or an antagonistic way. I mean, being critical, making sure that these are worthwhile things to pay for, because a lot of our taxpayers are hard up, and that's our job. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's just part of the checks and balances in town government. So that's,
Yeah,
I want to
and-
be sure that I'm aware of what's going on in terms of spending in departments as a member of this committee. And I don't want it just to be all fungible and to be in one big lump.
All right, I actually don't disagree with pretty much anything you said there, Bob. I think that kind of detailed monitoring of how departments are spending their money is a critical part of our job, and I think would continue to be under this format. George?
So two things. One, follow up on this conversation. We have a chart of accounts. There's all these accounts with those account numbers that we see. That doesn't go away, right? So I think it's
Right.
important that we get that report, and everybody agrees we'll get that report. It's also important to remind the department heads when we're asking for the budgets to give us their budgets at that level of detail, even though we're going to condense all the expense items. So I think it all works very well, and we get everything we want. And as long as the department heads know, and I know Gail's going to make sure they do, they still need to use the same account numbers, accounts that they use for the various types of expenses. We're just giving the flexibility to overrun one, as long as all combined do not override what was approved by the voters, because the voters are approving for each department 2 lines, theoretically in this case. For me, the real question, the other question is for Becky, the person who maintains our budget and prepares the budget that is presented to the town. Becky, typically what you have done through all the years is you've always accumulated the budget through the individual lines in each department that we're now talking about consolidating. So how challenging is it going to be for you to prepare a budget for annual town meeting when you have 2 separate budgets?
We're just gonna have to be extra careful that it's, I'll probably build off the detailed budget from last year
Mhm.
and then condense it into the 2 lines, because each department will have to agree with the final, the detail has to match the summary accounts. So it'll take another step of work.
It will, and typically you're racing to get that budget done. We're
Mhm.
making decisions last minute, and so when the stress hits the fan, it's going to be a real challenge for you, I think.
I know, I thought,
I'll just need to plan more time, but I apologize. I need to go answer somebody's
Yeah,
question. I'll be right back.
sure, go for it. My thought about that, George, is that as a committee, I picture us dealing with that detailed budget up until the point at which we vote as a
Mhm.
committee whether to recommend a budget or not, okay? And then, and only at that point where we have a final budget, do we then produce the summary budget. And yes, it's going to require a few extra steps and some careful cross-referencing to make sure that that summary budget.
Yeah, I just want to make that point.
But
That's
yeah,
all.
yeah.
The one other thing I will add to that, though, I could probably help Becky with that, in that if I might be able to build something where we could have the second page of the budget and those numbers just come in. So I'll
Mhm.
talk to Becky about that. I'll look at the budget I have now.
Yeah.
And once we decide on this, I might be able to do a little work there and create something that would save her some of that work. I
Susan?
think that can definitely be
Oh.
done. I just don't know
Yeah.
how challenging it would be.
And that's what I was thinking about spreadsheet magic, where there's a parallel universe that has congregated the lines that we know will be congregated together and comes up with a bottom line that's called the operating expense and the one that's called salaries. So it's not so much that you have to enter it into 2 different sheets.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to have this document that references those 2 lines as we go along. So
There's a couple ways to do it, Susan.
our
Absolutely.
wizard, we'll ask our wizard to do it.
Yes.
It
The
shouldn't be
other
that,
thing is
it really
I can-
shouldn't be that. It
Yeah,
really
I
shouldn't be that
I
hard.
can block this out early in the year. I don't have to wait to the last minute. I can get this piece done ahead and then
Mhm.
just fill in the blanks.
Right, yeah, so building a template that it would automatically fill, and then when the time comes, you won't even have to think about it.
Right.
Yeah,
And if you have trouble with that, if you want to have some ideas, if you want to kick it around, Becky, I'd be happy to help you with that.
Oh, great. That's always helpful. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
and so I think okay, so again, just to recap, we're going to have a rigorous debate about this at our next meeting. I'm not presuming that we're moving forward with this until we hear from everybody and we
Mhm.
have an opportunity to vote as a committee. And I'll try to at least do some additional legwork and find, I think it just would be helpful to see at least one other example of a town budget that's structured this way other than Conway. And so sounds like there, I might be able to find it.
But I can say
Alright.
that Irving and Hadley had these giant 100-page reports
Yeah,
for their budget.
I saw
And
that. Yeah.
And then they had these breakout pages, but it was sitting in the middle of 100 pages.
Yeah, yeah.
So you might want to look at a smaller town because we
Right.
ain't doing a
Conway's a
100-page
larger
report.
Yeah.
We're on 3 pages and that's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Double-sided, double-sided.
three
Um,
single-sided pages.
All right, so we'll discuss this again in our next meeting. And I think also one of the things that we should also talk about is like the real details about, okay, what does this actually look like at town meeting? Like, do we have copies of the detailed budget? Because I think in the interest of transparency, even if the town is not voting a warrant to approve the detailed budget, I think it still needs that level of detail still needs to be available. So like there are just important issues like that, I think that for us to just flesh out if we're going to pursue it. So
Yes.
we'll talk about
Yes.
that next. Okay.
Agreed.
Let's see. Next up on the agenda was PFAS loan and spending. I think the thought here was that there might be some important information or details or updates that you could share with us. Becky?
I can share a little bit.
Mhm.
The grant application will be submitted a little bit before August 11th. The timing of the release of funds, okay, is in near the end of the year. They're telling me about 3 months after the application is submitted, which be
Okay.
November, September, October, November, probably. And I have been, we've spent most of the 135 I originally received. We have come to, I think we have come for now, to the edge of the big ring, where we have not had to extend in the last about 4 rounds of testing. So that's good news. We do know that the PFAS does travel underground. So, we know that we had at least one household that was positive in 2020. I'm sorry, 2021. That was negative when Pat tested this spring. So unfortunately, I was hoping that we would, for the most part, be able to reduce the amount of testing. Testing is $500 for 2 tests, and we often have to do back-to-back. Before an installation of a PFAS, we test, and then after the installation, we have to test. 2 tests are $500. So with all the poets that have been installed, if we're required to do quarterly instead of biannual testing, the costs are going to be much higher. So it's at this point, we are getting a good understanding of of what is driving the PFAS in our town. And we have hope to stabilize at some point, but this is we're just working on the potential annual cost for this coming year. I'm working with Jeffrey Arps on that. And that's going to really help gauge us our direction in the future. We don't have a big project, like a rehabilitation project in sight at this point. Like, you know, with the gasoline, we removed 200 tons of gasoline contaminated soil. Cost over, you know, it was over $250,000 just to do that. We don't have a solution like that on the table at this point. So it's maintenance of all the carbon filters that are keeping people healthy will be
So
the
that-
focus for now.
So that's the primary use of these funds that we're applying for, would be continued testing and
Maintenance.
filter replacement and maintenance of the
Yeah.
poets. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that have already been installed.
Be-
Gotcha.
Becky,
Bob, yeah.
if, in terms of financial aspect of this for the coming year, you said that the money that from the loan will be available next year, sometime early next year, is that what you said?
Yes, or at the, hopefully before the end of this year.
Okay, so how does it look for this year in terms of what remaining funds we have? And how are we going to be able to manage whatever costs we might see coming up for the rest of the year?
It's very, very tight, and I'm just putting together, I have billing still out that I have to compile. I should have that answer for you by the next meeting.
Good, because that might have financial implications that we have to address, you know, so that'd be useful to know. Thanks.
Yep.
George?
So Becky, we've transferred a lot of money already towards this issue. And now we have this new money coming in. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. And we've got this new money coming in. You said $135,000,
150.
150. And so you're going to figure out what that money is going to be needed for.
Or yes. Together with Jeffrey, he's working on the final data charts. So we get a final reading of how much exactly we've spent on testing and poets and LSP fees. Those are the three categories we will have to maintain ongoing into next year.
Beyond what that calculation you just talked about is the cost beyond what we've already incurred and what we approved.
I'm working on the numbers. I still am getting invoices to close out the numbers potentially on the first 136,000. And I'm projecting into the future how much we're going to estimate we'll need for FY24.
Okay. And then at some point, a portion of this money is a grant and a portion of this money is a loan.
No, it's not a grant. It's a loan. But we were told that at a minimum, we would receive 20% forgiveness on the loan.
And what about a loan payment schedule?
It could go out, it'll go out 20 years, I believe is what the document we signed says. 20
Oh, well, geez, no interest.
No interest.
20 years, 130, 150. Oh, that's not so bad.
I'm pretty sure, and I will double check because I apologize.
But at some point, but that's okay. It's early. I just conceptually want to understand how this affects us. I mean, I don't see a rush for the numbers right now, but roughly what you just said, 20% off of 150, you know, makes it 120 divided by 20. We'll have to build that into our budget, right? At some point.
Right.
Okay.
And they said a minimum. I was told about one town that had debt relief of 44%.
Oh, that's great. So $6,000 a year is like the worst of it. Worst thing that could happen to us.
Well, that's not true at all. There's a lot of
Well,
bad.
I know, I'm just saying from a financial point of view, just our obligation to repay.
Well, this particular chunk, yeah, right.
I was
Not
talking
to
about the rest.
mention, yeah, so I had I had been told that you could I asked Jeffrey, how can you get rid of PFAS? He said, well, you have to bake it at 1600 degrees. So of course, I ran into a person who is working on a kiln that's like 10 feet by 30 feet, and it operates at 2000 degrees. So I've been inquiring the potential of building a regional PFAS baking center. So I'm just, it's pie in the sky at this point, but who knows what concepts it's going to take to actually get control of this situation. It's sure a better idea than paving the whole field behind the fire station.
Yeah,
And
you don't
there
know.
just aren't a lot of long-term answers for this stuff at this point.
Well, hopefully there's going to be a lot more help coming from federal and state governments to, because we're not the only people dealing with this.
Not at all.
No, we're not. It's
It's
just that
huge.
every day there's, 2 new towns that are starting to deal with it. So whereas we got into this $150,000 grant, emergency grant fairly easily, competition is going to be ramping up too. So we got to stay at it and get control over it somehow.
Susie?
So I continue to need to understand this. So the 135,000 that the town appropriated is about spent. The 150,000 in the grant wasn't meant to pay any of that back to the town. It was only meant to address our future PFAS costs. Is that how? to look at it?
It was not defined. It depend, if we had been able to complete our remediation with 150,000, we could use all this money as reimbursable to the town. Unfortunately, given the magnitude of costs still out there, and they might be much less this year, it all, ongoing, it's going to depend on the level of testing and the amount of times DEP is going to require us to test individual wells.
But the grant would allow the town to take some in reimbursement if we look at the situation and it seems to be sorting itself out that way.
Correct. It's just, given the fact there's no end
Right.
to our testing requirements, it's hard to imagine the town not going through that additional $150,000.
I agree. I just want to understand that part.
April?
I would just
Oh,
rephrase
George
that.
and then April. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I would just rephrase that and say, if in a perfect world, if it turns out we didn't really need the 120, maybe we'll need 30 of it. And we would just be shifting that any money that we don't use back into cash, which essentially means, in essence, what we did was we took that money that we spent before, reimbursed it, and now we're being lent that money for the next 20 years. I'm just,
Mhm.
in concept, that's the result of that situation that Susie described. Of course, Becky
Unless we
then
spend
said
it.
that's not likely going to happen, but that's in essence what would happen.
Right.
Reimburse our cash, and then we would just have the loan. Right, Becky?
Yeah, but
Not really going to happen. Not going to happen that way.
You just want to understand.
it would be nice.
April?
Yeah, my question is, do we have a handle on how widespread the PFAS pollution is in the town, and planning for how to determine that? I know we have the 6 wells to look at water quantity that we dug, I don't know how many years ago. Is there a way to use that to test more, get a more general test, or?
It's for the most part, those wells are, we did test the well on Lotto 32 and it was negative for PFAS.
Okay. And the other ones are on
That's
the
the-
ridge, so they're
Yeah,
probably
most of the
less
others are
likely.
away from, well, they're not that far. One's close to the AC, one's
Yeah.
close to houses over on,
And one's on
Yeah.
West Pelham Road.
yeah.
There, yeah.
But the pollution from the fire station is our main cost.
That's our
Responsibility.
So the
responsibility.
other pollutions, just
That's
to,
right.
just to focus on that. Have we got the perimeter of this problem? We have that defined yet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
my
So
question is.
the perimeter has been defined, so we know that
But
we
with
have
the
limited.
qualifier, Bob, the qualifier from the LSP is groundwater continues to move. My example of a household that was negative last year, 2 years ago, became positive 2 years later.
See,
So it could be that maybe, it's flowing downhill. So a
It
property
tends to.
on the other side of George that was negative this year could become positive next year.
I see.
And those of us who live downhill from, we don't know where it is. That's really the bottom
And-
line.
Right, and the way it's traveling, where they're looking into the well depths and charting all the different well depths to get a sense of how it's, how is somebody at the top of the hill impacted by the fire station? But if
Mm.
they have a significantly deep well, the way
We
the
don't know.
fractures run, we don't have,
Right.
we can't see the water flows underground, unfortunately.
Well, one really good thing about this whole disaster is that we'll understand a little bit more about the way water moves around.
I think
Right,
there is,
Become
I think,
experts.
no, I do think there are experts. I wonder
Interesting,
if Al Werner is, the Water Resource Committee
Right.
group that we
DEP
had.
Stop meeting.
Jeff Arps is
not
that
here now.
person, and he's
Okay.
the DEP, and he's both watching how we take on our responsibility and how you assess that, and also helping to think of
Perfect.
the rest of it. But he is the person, and he is keeping an eye on. He hasn't hit the gavel and said it's done. We're still
I'm
doing.
sure it's not.
I
Right.
wonder if
So
they're
this is-
tracking how much PFAS is in the Quabbin. I wonder if, if Becky's saying that it's getting, there's houses up in the center of town that are getting it, maybe it's getting on the other side of the center of town underwater and finding its way into Quabbin. That's going to get the state's attention.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably not as likely, but yeah,
This-
we don't
It
know.
won't be, there are other major reservoirs that have gotten PFAS.
Yeah.
It's starting to come out.
But this PFAS,
But they can filter the water through the water treatment plants
Yeah.
as it goes out. It's well water is,
Individualized.
Right.
yeah, the
Yeah,
most,
dispersed nature of it.
yeah, but it's the fact that we can put in the filters also protect from gasoline.
Right.
And that's the other issue. I want you to know that we just did a regular test for a gasoline at the fire station back in May or June, beginning of June, and the levels of gasoline have come back.
Oh, no.
And so we are doing, and we only did one test of the main well. So all the select board moved ahead to do full testing of all the wells at the fire station to find out if this was a misreading. There was, what happened in between is the fire station parking lot was paved and some of the tops of the nozzles got knocked around some. And so we're going back in and doing a very slow, decisive test to find out where we are with that. But that might be another emerging issue.
when
But
you
thank
say
God we're
nozzles,
dealing with this. That's what, that we're not turning a blind eye to any of this. And that the town really has used a lot of resources to keep an eye on it. I appreciate that.
we don't have any choice. This is our responsibility. I mean,
Absolutely,
but
absolutely.
just so I understand, Becky, nozzles, what nozzles?
The test.
I mean, we have a series of 6 or 9 test wells
Oh, you
in
have
the parking
tanks.
lot at the
Okay,
gas
I see, yeah,
station. And it's the lids, they're not all the seals were 100% intact. So we're just gonna retest everything and so,
I see, because it might have been polluted by the paving operation.
there could have been some other,
That would put some
factor.
petroleum stuff in there or whatever.
God willing.
Just for clarification on the PFAS, there's lots of different types of PFAS. And so we have a specific PFAS chemical that is our problem. And it can be identified and found as part of this plume, right?
The rain.
There's a series, there's 26 total PFAS that are being, that we know of. 6 of them are regulated by the state and the federal government. We are just, so when we do a test, a sample test will list all 26. But the focus, you focus in on number 2 through 8. Those are, when you add those numbers up, if anything is above 0 in those, then it's a positive. Those are the ones that are being regulated that are seen as the worst type. But some of the others do show up, and that's another clue. So Jeffrey Arps is doing a lot of detective work to try to figure out where, how this picture adds up.
I wonder if that list of PFAS chemicals that are regulated by the state is going to expand beyond.
Good.
Potentially it could.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned is
Um,
right, yeah.
Okay, we've run through our agenda for tonight. Are there any other items or questions or updates? Susie?
I wanted to find out how the school roof project is going since we've had a month of rain.
Hmm.
They started Saturday. And did some of the, they did some of the work on the edges. I don't have the right word.
Eaves.
Nope. It's
Six.
what?
Gables.
Nope. Okay. So, but Monday, they were there early Monday morning. They stripped and re-shingled a section on the, I think it's the southeast section, and moved towards the north today. They probably got pretty far. We have a meeting tomorrow on site, and I just keep praying for the rain to end. But they're
Sounds supposed to be
committed to
nice.
getting it done. They'll work Saturdays, they'll work in, 10-hour days. And we are gonna do everything we can to get it done before school starts.
Awesome.
But it ain't easy.
Yeah,
But it's happening and it looks
yeah,
good.
they're there. They're working on it.
Yeah, that's great news.
That's
So we have the culvert on one end and the school roof on the other. There's
Mhm.
nothing's happening in this town right
And
now.
PFAS in the
And
middle.
PFAS in the middle.
Oh, yeah, great.
And about 25 electric and
Yeah.
Stanley tree trucks all
How
over
long are they
town.
gonna be in town for?
I guess National Grid will be, but they're gonna be mostly on Locks Pond Road.
Cool.
So they won't have as much traffic.
There won't be, no.
Are they gonna do Pelham Hill Road?
No, they are running
Three-phase.
Phase.
power to Wendell.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Oh,
going
is
from the
that
school
what this
to Wyndham.
was? Oh, okay,
That's what it's going, all right.
okay. So we are Metropolitan Wendell.
Becky, what is the story with those famous telephone poles around the culvert? Are they gonna be replaced now?
They were moved.
Oh, the one that we had moved.
Yeah, because they're carrying a heavier load now with the cabling for the three-phase,
Yeah, they can't work on that. I enjoyed letting the electric crew know about the culvert project. It would not be a problem for them if they had moved one single pole.
Right.
Mhm.
So I wanted to bring something up, if I may, AJ. Last
Yeah.
week, we did discuss the transfers that we had to sign up for.
Yes.
and I did go up and sign those. But
Mhm.
one question, one thing that I was unhappy about was that we got these transfers basically during our meeting. We hadn't had any chance to look at them ahead of time or to study them and go over the expense report with the transfers. So for me, I had questions that I asked Becky about the issue of the school, the heating line, which we transferred, I think, $8,000 and some other money over to pay for. And it was determined that, or at least I was told that part of it was the gas being refilled for the generator at the school. And I've been looking at, I looked at the document after the meeting because I studied the that document a little more closely and looked at the school budget and wondered why school didn't pay for our their budget. And so this is the kind of thing that I need to, as a member of this committee, I want to be able to see these documents well ahead of the meeting and give myself time to examine them and to think about it and to compare notes with other resources we have, such as the expense report and last year's budget and so forth. So I just want to emphasize that for me, I'm not going to vote on anything like that in the future if I don't have time to carefully examine the thing. I don't know what the rush was for that particular thing for us to vote it in, and it had to be voted in by the 15th. And that's really not suitable as far as I'm concerned, to be told that something's an emergency and not have time to look at it and give it the careful consideration that it deserves before I vote for it. So I'm hoping that we can just all agree, and I know, Becky, you're very busy, but if we're going to be voting on money, that we get a chance to look at these things ahead of time before we vote on them. So not have them delivered during the meeting. I know it's not easy to keep up with all these changes, but I don't think we should be voting on it until we have a chance to vote on it. So if we have to put it off for a week or two, so be it, but it's better than voting on something that we haven't really looked at.
I just
Yeah.
want to also thank Bob, or your membership or your friends for, I've already had a complaint filed against me regarding
My friends,
Bob's not about when people don't have enough time to look at things.
oh,
I really work hard to get you things as fast as I can. The 15th is by statute. I'm not making this stuff up. We had tried to meet on the 5th. And yes, I was derelict in taking 2 days off to go to a wedding and delaying the project. I will continue to do my best to get you things earlier. And that's what I can do.
yeah, I'm just saying that I can't vote on things unless I get the information in a timely way. And so that means we just have to put it off. We have to put it off. I can't.
By
Can't commit.
statute,
Couldn't.
sometimes that's
that
not
wasn't-
possible. The other situation, the 2% retirement, you had been given the information 6 days before the meeting that you said you did not get the information at. I will continue to do my best, Bob. That's all I can do.
I-
And I work to get things out, and sometimes the immediate, when it's the PFAS contracts and all these other situations that I'm trying to manage, I can't always get it out as timely as you would like, but I will endeavor to do better. My apologies.
Becky, I'm not trying to attack you personally. I'm just saying that I don't. can't-
I don't take it personally. I'm just letting you know from a person that's in this position. Someday you're gonna have somebody else struggling to manage all of these things. And I hope you can, if you potentially have any questions about things going on, if you can reach out sooner, if you can reach out and ask more questions, I'll do, my best to give you more answers and information ahead. When it came to the situation with the transfers, I had to wait till I got the information from the accountant. I had to have that in place, and that was a struggle to do because we have had nothing but overrun accounts. I was sweating bullets to the last minute, trying to be, know what all the we had to hold a bunch of bills. We had to hold fuel bills, we had to hold legal bills, and then they had to be manually added and incorporated into the totals once I got the final report. It was an extremely unusual year. Usually by this time, we have a better sense of what our where our expense lines were at. I did not have a single expense report till I sent you that one that could give me halfway definitive information. I had to work with the accountant and figure things out manually because of the extreme overspending all this year. So it was a very tough report to put together. And I'm still hopeful that we didn't overlook anything, because you can't go backwards from that transfer.
Right.
Okay, any other updates? We should also discuss our next meeting date.
Oh,
By the way, I neglected to mention, I did hear from Jim Walton during our meeting via email, and he just didn't have web access. He had planned to attend, but couldn't
Oh.
log on. Okay. All right, 2 weeks is
Eighth.
the 8th. Unfortunately, I'm away that week. I'm wondering if you guys can meet on the 15th. Is that an option?
Then we'll get out of sync with the select board.
Yeah, the select board's meeting on the 15th.
yeah.
It should be
probably.
the 1st and the 15th.
So what if we took the 22nd? Or the 8th?
You know,
Well,
the
night.
finance committee used to get the whole month of August off, AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, used to, Becky.
Well, what do we have to talk about?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I suggest we meet on the 22nd. And if something comes up and we decide, oh, we need to meet before then, we can always figure out an alternative.
The holiday.
What, the 22nd?
The 22nd?
It's hard to keep track of
Oh,
how
no,
these
it'll be holiday between now and then.
And the thing that will come up kind of fast after that is our September draft of the letter to the departments. So,
Yeah.
and I was also thinking maybe we would, I don't know how that our town newsletter is looking. Last year, we had a report from the finance committee in that fall letter, because there are many people,
Yeah,
especially
that's
this
right.
year, it was so cold, that weren't at the meeting. And so since Jim Walton isn't here,
Yeah.
I thought maybe we could ask him to write the article for the fall Our Town, so we could communicate that to him.
moral of this story, never skip a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
All right. Yeah, no, that's a good reminder, though. We are going to want to do that. I mean, I think that.
Is this the
that was-
6:30 start?
Yeah, so let's go back to our 6:30 start.
Okay.
April, we'll do 6:30 on.
I'm not going to be able to make the
August
22nd of August, but that's okay.
All right.
So you'll have a side task.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm afraid now.
You should be.
It's going to be really hard to log in from where I'm going to be, so.
Becky, can George email? I can't remember what the rules are on this. Can he email the committee any thoughts or questions around this alternative budget format issue that he
as long
wants
as
us
we
to
don't
discuss?
respond.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
don't
no-
respond, you can
No
just. hold it
responding,
for the
but
meeting.
George, if you have any,
And don't send it
opinions
to
or
the whole
questions?
committee. Just send it to
Just-
AJ.
okay.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then and then
And
I'll share.
I mean, after what we talked about today,
Yeah, just, but I guess, anticipating that the rest of the committee, since you're not able to join, are going to be having, a discussion about whether to adopt this alternative format, and if so, what kinds of decisions do we
Yeah,
need to make,
I
and what
want-
kinds of plan?
I think you've all heard what
Yeah, no, that's,
I think everything is fine. I don't really have
Yeah.
anything to add.
okay, that's fine,
Okay,
yeah.
And you can't.
All right.
oh, Anyway. So should I move to adjourn?
I'll second that.
I will recruit Jim Walton to look at a
Okay,
year's article, and he can put one up. And then we should be looking at what we did last year for the
Yeah.
letter to the departments, but probably August would be an okay to
Yeah.
start looking at that,
that sounds good.
those two.
Never
things.
too soon.
Never
All
too
right.
soon.
All
Okay.
right, should we take a
Second.
quick vote on
Overnight aside.
Groves, I.
Cashew Eye?
Mosier, aye.
Sinai.
Adjourned.
Good night,
All
all.
right,
Yeah,
good night, everyone.
Adios.
See ya.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care.